I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, President. President, by some odd coincidence, members of the General Assembly are discussing the situation in Syria for the second time in a month. Once again, the basis for today's meeting is a politicised resolution that does not enjoy consensus. We all understand that the only purpose of this kind of resolution is to demonise the Syrian government. Moreover, it would be nice to hear about the real problems faced by the government and people of this long-suffering country. For many years, Syria has been waging a war against externally financed terrorist groups. The most complex situation is in Idlib, which is still home to international terrorists, led by the UN-listed terrorist organisation Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Another grave problem is the violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the country, the unlawful occupation of its territory, and the pillaging of its natural resources. The international community should also be concerned about the state of affairs with human rights, children and women's rights of those who live in refugee camps on territories controlled by the USA. The USA, who bears entire responsibility for what is happening there, as they are the occupying power. Today, in Brussels, there is another humanitarian conference organised by the EU to provide assistance to Syrians. Humane? It could look that way if it weren't for the fact that here we're providing assistance to a people who at the same time are suffering from unilateral, unlawful sanctions by the donors to the conference themselves. These sanctions, imposed in circumvention of the UN, are dwindling the hope of a swift economic recovery. The organisers of the conference have once again not deemed it necessary to invite the legitimate Syrian government. How could you possibly discuss the future of a country without its government? 80% of the country's territory is under control of the Syrian authorities, as well as the majority of IDPs are under the control of the Syrian authorities. But the donors are demonstratively sending the majority of the resources raised to people in territories not controlled by the government and to neighbouring countries. Against this backdrop, the Western states continue to cynically opine on how there is no alternative to the cross-border humanitarian assistance mechanism, though not a single step is being taken to support cross-line delivery. President, in the context of the Syrian conflict, a lot is said about the responsibility for violations of human rights. The number of all kinds of investigators into Syria has already broken all records. This pertains to the respected structures of the Human Rights Council and also the illegitimate Commission of the General Assembly that we all know by its abbreviation IIIM, as well as several dozen NGOs, some of which have themselves been under financial investigations for fraud by their own donor countries. There are energetic provision of fabricated material by groups with direct links, with links to the terrorist underground. It has been possible to unmask some of them. For example, the so-called white helmets. I'd recall how very recently you welcomed their humanitarian work in Syria. And today it would appear that these people are so dangerous that even their backers are afraid of bringing them back to their own countries. If you really hold human rights and international justice so dear, then stop discrediting them. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation.